Done.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's TOC meeting. We've got a single item on the agenda and any other business. So the single item we've got is an update on charters for working groups. So probably makes sense to start with that one.
Yeah, I'm not sure if David is joining. I don't see him active on Slack, but I didn't hear from him that he wasn't joining either. Expect he would have some updates about the foundational infrastructure working group.
Yes, I was also hoping Jan might have some updates as well.
Yeah, well, I can start with an update on the app runtime platform working group. So I think that's been out of draft mode and up for approval for maybe since late last week. I forget exactly when I took it out of draft status. And then as we were discussing last time, we're also expecting Giuseppe to draft a charter for CF on Gates. So I took the Irene scope out of that. Oh, great. Here's David. And I think the only feedback I've gotten from anyone else on the TOC at this point, Stefan, you approved it before then, so I recycled, or reprompted you for approval with that reduction in scope. And then Jan commented, I had left a thing in there about the breadth of target platforms for the app runtime platform working group, and Jan had commented like at least noting that we still had Kubernetes there. I think for the time being, it makes sense just to take that amount of scope out because the remaining set of components in that working group are really just focused on compatibility with the Bosch system and supporting that. So I'll go ahead and make that minor revision, and then please take a look for approval. We'll try and do that later today.
Excellent. David, have you got any update on...
Yeah, Ruben and I spent some time on this. I think we're ready to bring the foundational services or infrastructure, sorry, mixing two words together, the foundational infrastructure working group for the approval process over the next week. Ben gave me some early feedback that he wants Bosch to do a lot more. Well, he had some ideas for Bosch as a whole ecosystem community, which I have shared at various points in my life. So I wasn't like, this is crazy. I was like, that's interesting. That is not the direction of the PR that I have made for that infrastructure definition of scope and mission. So I told him to challenge that and try to make some amounts of suggestions towards how he'd want to refine that vision. But he's not here to defend that right now. But I suspect later he'll be like, come take a look at my cool proposal for how Bosch can be better. So I want to review what he's written and really take it fairly seriously and try to see how much of what he's written down I would say falls into the mission and how much we are at odds over the mission, and then figure out how to make a decision with you all by next week. But I told them to use the 1 week period of review for exactly this purpose, right? Yeah. So someone has to remind me what I do next. I'm going to take it out of draft mode, right? On the PR side. Okay, cool. Yep. I can do that. That seems very reasonable. Yes, I'm officially starting the 1 week feedback process. I also found a bunch of junk in there that did not belong in there. Like Eric told me that I had to break it out by area, like the approvers and code bases by area, which then caused me to realize that there was some stuff in there that had nothing to do with the thing. So it's really good to break it out, breaking it into concrete areas within the working group or groups makes you realize there might be some stuff that is not in any of those areas and is actually part of some other group. So that was a good exercise.
Okay, cool. Stefan, any activity on your side?
I don't have any updates on the interfaces working group, but I remember a discussion within SAP that I think Behan wanted to ask whether he can get a co-lead in the infrastructure group because he was working a lot on Bosch, and there's also a team at SAP active in Bosch, so it would make sense. But I see it's already added by Jan, so I guess it's on the update list by Jan that Lee might have. I don't know. Okay, but that is inside. Yeah, fine.
Okay. Cool. There's not been any further movement on the Paketo working group PR. And I had a look through the documentation that Jan had flagged up, and I couldn't see any particular incompatibilities or points of conflict on there. So I'll see if I can catch up with Jan over the next few days, as we're close time zone wise, to just try and get those particular bits resolved so we can get over for the formal review period. And let's just see. So I think they're all the ones that we've actually got particularly active at the moment. Oh. Apologies, it's school ending time here and just a load of children going past. Yeah, so I don't think there's anything else on there that we need to look at immediately. So that kind of brings us to the end of the solitary agenda item.
Oh, I did want to point out that Giuseppe he has started a PR about that CF on Kate's working group, but I don't think it's ready for review yet. So that's also progressing, which is great.
Okay, awesome. Oh yeah, I've just spotted that. Yeah, that looks in a fairly advanced state to start with. So
yeah, it's probably 90% of the way there.
Yeah, cool. Yes, so that is the solitary agenda item that we had. So, opening the floor to any other business.
I'm in the middle of drafting a proposal for the JJ operating system, like the community proposed move to JJ operating system. I will bring it to you all because it's cross-cutting, and I'm breaking out the supply chain of, like, we have to do the stem cell, we have to do the root FS, and we have to do the build packs, and we have to do we have to certify CFD on it, and then you've got to get everyone to move their apps to CF Linux FS4, and then you're done. So it's a huge move. And obviously we can't do too much starting because the JJ operating system doesn't even have a name yet. Not only has it not shipped, they haven't named it. I imagine they're going to name it as soon as the Impish Impala or whatever gets released next month. They'll put a name on the JJ, and I can stop referring to JJ. Though they might pick a worse name than JJ itself. We'll see. So I mean, I'll put that proposal forward.
We should figure out what kind of timeline Canonical is setting for the longevity of Ubuntu, just by however they're constrained around the rarer consonants like X and Q. You know, they might not be able to make it to 2100 or something.
You know what? I'm going to maybe say that that's somebody else's problem entirely at this
right.
point.
Yeah, we'll be dead by then. So.
Yeah, or they'll just come up with a new naming convention.
No, never. Cool. That sounds great, David. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, and I forgot to mention that this week, Marcella is the candidate. Marcella Campo is the candidate I'm going to put forward as a services working group lead. She's one of the 3 or 4 folks working on cloud service broker. So she's relevant to the space and worked on, like, our services enablement team. So really knows a lot about, like, the SAPI, the CF API, like, for services. I think she'd be great, and she's interested in doing it. So she and I are going to get some time this week, and we'll hopefully bring a services PR for the approval to begin approval process next week. I'll have her come if possible and introduce herself.
Awesome.
Oh, David, as part of thinking back to the stem cell stuff, have you looked at all at any of the kernel backporting that's been happening around Xenial or Bionic, and how that might match kernels from the newer lines? Because I know, we've relied on some of that in the past for, like, cross OS compatibility.
Yeah, totally. They do this hardware enablement kernel, right, for 2 years. I mean, that's really a JJ question of which kernel should we
Right.
ship in, but you only have one choice in the beginning. So good news. It's just over time, there'll be a second kernel available from some later operating system with a higher letter. And that would be normally a major stem cell bump, right? Like historically, we would always track the hardware enablement kernel, and we'd be cutting major releases of the stem cell that were breaking that introduced new kernels. Now we did that because we actually cared about the feature set in the new kernel, because like Garden and the containerization was changing very fast. I don't have any reason to believe that's true anymore, because we've been running the Bionic kernel for like ever, right? Since 2018, we've been running the Bionic kernel in both operating systems, Xenial and Bionic. So no one's like, I really need that focal kernel or that JJ kernel. And so like, I can't imagine they would also say, I really need that even further out kernel that has yet to be released. Ryan Moran and I did have a question about kernel compatibility. We're wondering whether we can run CF Linux FS4 on the Bionic kernel. If that's the case, then the stem cell move and the root file system move are orthogonal, which would be really nice. It's like they can start building a root FS for CF Linux FS4. You can even run it on Xenial if you want to, as a stem cell. So that lets people kind of move their apps and start experimenting with build packs and all sorts of stuff. If that's not the case, and there's no reason to think it would be, because like it's a much newer operating system libraries with a much older kernel. So like, they don't guarantee forward compatibility, just backward compatibility usually. So there's no reason to think that would be the case. But if he's going to try it at some point, and if that's the case, that will really help the whole supply chain move. I need to align everybody around a move relatively quickly, right? Because if we skip focal and we go to JJ, you got to go fast. You got to wait, and then you got to go fast. And so I'm setting everybody up that I know for the wait and then they go fast, and wait and then go fast. Because the stakes are pretty high, right? Bionic support goes out in 2023. So we have to show up again with a fully working ecosystem. And it's even worse this time because CF Linux FS3 is dead. Whereas before we didn't have to worry about moving apps and build packs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a big
Pacato. By the way, Pacato is also going to skip focal and go straight to JJ because they don't want to do an operating system move every 2 years if possible.
Okay. So it makes actually an awful lot of sense then to align on JJ.
Yeah.
Totally. One of Ben's proposal things is going to be that we don't do that, but I think there's just too much lift, and we don't want to move apps every 2 years. I think we could afford to move stem cells every 2 years, but the app move was really hard for everybody to digest, and like, yeah, that's a Cloud Foundry core architecture problem too. Like it doesn't handle the supply chain of moving your app to a new operating system very well. It handles a lot of stuff. It doesn't handle that very well, unfortunately.
Yeah, I wonder if that is something to put on the radar of the cloud controller folks as well, because that was a rough transition for the stack change going from CF Linux FS2 to FS3. And now we're looking at that same, and I don't think that there's been any substantial work in that area around smoothing out that transition. I definitely recall a lot of complaints about like, hey, I just want to carve out this one exception for this one team that doesn't have time to update their stuff just yet. But they're holding the whole platform update hostage.
Yeah, because we ripped the whole stack out from under you, and there's nothing you can do about that. I think the proposal to do this better this time is a pretty small proposal, and I think we'd be open to like actual better changes to Cloud Controller. But our proposal is to essentially let you run this older stack that's insecure as long as you want. Like essentially, rather than ripping out the stack from under you, say, if you want to run this insecure stack, we will give you an option to do that for as long as you want. But I think a better proposal would be technology around restaging and restarting and rebuilding applications that seem to be working, technology around seeing which applications are not on the new stack, which I think we have. Some of those are plugin.
If I remember correctly, wasn't it possible to run both stacks in parallel? I remember back that we had deployed both. You could choose, and the question was only which one is the default and when do you want to withdraw the old stack, and that was a tricky thing. And there has been, even I think in the build pack area, there were different versions for the stack because where the binaries are different. That's what I think
we'll have to do that
interesting.
Again. we'll have new build packs for the new stack. And then it's really just about, I think what we did, at least for our VMware customers, is we ripped the old stack out at some point. We said, you cannot have this old stack if you want to upgrade. And I think the decision we're going to make is to allow you to run it in secure mode if you really want to on the old stack, have some way to put the old stack back in. If you're like, oh no, 5 apps didn't make the transition, quick. And I think the CFD equivalent might be like an ops file that puts the old stack back in. So it's secure by default. But if you're like, I actually haven't made this move yet and I'm scared, you can put the old stack back in for the foreseeable future.
So I think we deployed both stacks. Then we announced that we will switch the default, and that catered for most of the applications. And then finally we announced when we will remove it. Then were some complaints, and then we force restaged everybody to the new stack. Another wave of complaints, but then we shrugged with shoulders and simply removed the stack. And of course, in a public path, there are some customers who are left alone. But well, if you don't read release notes, bad luck. At a certain point of time, you have to do it.
All right. Well, that's the plan. Yeah. I've got a document. I'll share it with this group shortly. It's already started. It's just not very interesting. It just outlines all the things that would have to happen in order for us to make this move successfully. Sort of along this line, but maybe less interesting, is that we're exploring and planning to do Windows 2022 support soon. On the Bosch, some of the folks working on Bosch are starting to explore Windows 2022, which is out now, and we don't have a lot of years left on the old Windows. It's like it expires in 2023 as well, so we're facing 2 operating systems expiring in 2023. My plan is to get ahead of that by starting with Windows, because we can actually do it right now, and then doing JJ. And also the Bosch team, that the VMware folks that working on Bosch at least don't know Windows very well, but they think they want to work on it, and they're like, oh, we should be able to support and maintain this and make changes. So they're using this as an opportunity to learn the Windows technology stack again. The problem with Windows is we don't make changes to it very often, so it's hard to stay current, and it's a specialized set of skills, right? Yeah, like that doesn't overlap that much.
Cool. Does anyone have anything else for this week? If a no, then we may as well gain some time back, I guess. Okay, cool. So actually, before we just do that, quick thought of adding some actions onto the notes, and for some reason that's logged me out, which is annoying. Reload that. There we go. I'm back in again. So, I'm going to catch up with Jan. On the Picasso PR. And okay. What else have we got action-wise for this week? I'm just looking back. So there's Eric to remove Arini from the PR. Not Arini, sorry, Cube. Okay. And David's to pull out from WIP.
Hello, everyone.
How's it going?
Oh, great.
Hey, Benjamin.
Hey.
I alluded to your grand vision for Bosch. but I'm not sure we have a ton left on the agenda. So if you want to tell us why you see Bosch as being this awesome thing, I let everybody know that we're opening up the community review phase for this pull request as soon as I figure out how to change it from draft to not draft. Eric, I might need your help if I can't figure it out.
I'll tell you where the button is.
What? There's no such thing. I've looked everywhere.
It might be text actually. So
do you want to spend 5 or 10 minutes telling us like what you think about Bosch and make sure you send us the link so we can review it?
So sorry, I'm French as a native speaker. Could you say it a little bit more slowly?
Sure. Why don't you spend five minutes telling us about Bosch, your ideas for Bosch, and make sure to send the link to your document if you have one.
Yeah, I haven't had time to polish the content of the document today, unfortunately. The ID, yes, I can show it anyway. It's I've sketched just some notes, but the idea would be to let me share my screen. Yeah, the idea would be to Bosch is a unique piece of software that is still useful in 2001, and the community would benefit. And some more protection, more concern on users' need, and so improve how the tech industry at large perceives Bosch, improve user experience for Bosch release consumers, and the same Bosch release authors. And as my colleagues, engineer Peters, call it, the platform operators or platform developers. So improving how the tech industry perceives Bosch would be about more clearly expressing what is Bosch. If you want to keep it simple, it's a robot. It's a robot that manages virtual machines. So just that, and use that simple message. The name has always been said to be problematic, because Bosch is a term that designates German in the context of World War I and II, and so it's basically based on, it was Borg++ in the first place. We started to know that after 2015, and so OpenBorg could be a better name, and would probably improve how the industry perceives the technology, and that would properly relate it to its ancestor, just like Kubernetes. Once I was saying to some Google guy, yeah, Bosch is inspired by Kubernetes is inspired by Borg, not Bosch. Well, differently. Provide more recent operating system. It's also a problem for the tech industry when they arrive and they see what stem cell, Ubuntu Bionic, Ubuntu Xenile, Ubuntu Trusty. Oh, what's that? So this is a very simple. Stop presenting all stem cell in the front page. Just move them a little bit backwards and say, just link all stem cells, and just don't show them in the first place. Document a little bit Bosch for Windows. It's quite unique. Why not documenting it? User experience for Bosch release consumers. well, there could be about some YAML to chain for deployment manifest in order to build them following stream definitions and Oversight definitions. Help deployer distinguish between reliable BOSH release versus experimental ones. Have more explicit way of listing them in on BOSH.io. Yeah, explicit coupling between releases and stem cell. Most BOSH releases are actually tied to Ubuntu or tied to some operating system. It would be nice that this appears in the config file metadata. And for BOSH release author, as you may know, I'm BOSH release author, so I have a lot to say about that. Yeah, just I want to stop hearing that writing BOSH release is hard. It's not. And
I'm laughing because it is
yeah,
hard though. Like it's hard for like 12 different reasons. And I think that's actually the biggest, like what you're talking about is a lot of work. And like who's going to do all this work to make BOSH better? That's the first question. But the second problem with BOSH is that releases compared to building a Docker image are very hard to make. Like BOSH gives you advantages like cross operating system portability in theory, and a source versus a binary compiled package like an apt package. BOSH has some cool advantages. It's just very hard to slot existing software into BOSH releases, especially to make fully managed like services. I know we had a really hard time with like Cassandra when the upgrade procedure was to SSH into all the VMs and run this command before you do an upgrade. And like, it was very hard to build fully managed, like BOSH doesn't have lifecycle hooks for those type of operations. So it's just hard to get existing software that worked okay to slot into BOSH's conventions.
Yeah, but then it's related to how hard is the underlying technology you are to manage the difficulties you are trying to capture into the BOSH release. So it's not really related to creating a BOSH release in itself. It's related to properly packaging some distributed system that is hard to manage in the first place. I've worked on the Cassandra BOSH release. I didn't know you guys at VMware had done so. Is it open source?
Cassandra one? No, I don't think so. We were trying to build some proprietary data services.
Yeah.
And that was a very long time ago.
Very long time ago.
That has like 2014, 2015 stamped on it in my mind.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And it was hard. We just couldn't get some of the conventions of the software to fit into BOSH's operational lifecycle model. Like BOSH is really good. If you can follow it, you get a lot of advantages, but it was really hard to get community adoption.
Well, yeah, when I was working on the Cassandra BOSH release open source by Orange, telecom operator, I've hit the fact that Cassandra doesn't accept two certificate authorities for SSL certificates. So rotating is harder in that case. And this was requiring some upstream PR.
We experienced that with RabbitMQ. We had to make changes to Rabbit, which we own the upstream to. And so like we could make the changes to make it possible to BOSHify a cluster, but we had to change the underlying software to make it declarative in its end state rather than imperative, which was good. It moved the complexity out of the operator into the software itself. So it was a positive change, but like it's a lofty goal to try to do this to the world.
And so in the first place, the packaging script inside BOSH release is hard to debug. Once I've tried to compile OpenNCMTPD, I just never managed to compile it on the stem cell. The error message of the compilation was just clumsy. Improve interoperability of this with district packages. Yeah, you have the possibility to embed .deb packages into a Bosch release. There is this Bosch Gen from Stack and Wing, Bosch Gen tools to do that automatically. Well, there is a discussion about whether it's interesting to use distribution packages or not. Well, stem cells tend to have a very, very, very stable compatibility, and over a quite long time. Distributions are already doing a lot of good things with missing incompatibilities, configs, OS distribution specificities, and security patches. Sometimes writing a Bosch release means reconstructing that, and they are doing already a great job about that. So sometimes you fall into the compile the word problem. This MongoDB compilation Bosch release is an example where you have those packages present just to compile MongoDB because the stem cell doesn't provide things. That was inspired by just me saying, guys, you need to recompile. That's the idea with Bosch. But yeah, when you do that, you'll start questioning about what you are doing actually. So I'm asking around missing libraries at build time in the packaging script. In this Kong, it's the GK, sorry, GK Kong. In what? Okay. In the GK Kong Bosch release, I've done that, and those packages are installed at compile time because they are needed to compile those things. And you can have a look at the Git repository if you need. And so why not just say in the spec of a package that we need some package from the from Ubuntu. So improve how you put the cursor between being fully from source can be recompiled on any new stem cell, but we have only Ubuntu, and usually we have at one period of time. But currently we don't have Xenial as open source. So at one single point of time, we always have only one stem cell that we use. Anyway, yeah, this would you would have the cursor whether choosing source code or using packages. We could also improve operability with Docker Compose and Helm charts, providing a standard way of doing things. I've worked on the Harbor Bosch release. It's sorry guys from VMware, but so I have patched it heavily in order to have it properly work, and finally it did. So it spawns a Docker Compose thing with dozens of containers. I mean, that's fine, but this is not even leveraging the standard Docker Bosch release. It's a bit sad. Well, and other standard bits we could provide are, this is simple. I have that JQ package ready. We just need some BOSH package, some more BOSH package. OpenSSL is also a good thing because we need to, whenever a BOSH release is shipping OpenSSL, at any time. So we would need some, and it would benefit publishing some standard burn pipelines for BOSH release to get to provide always the latest OpenSSL. And Node.js is also very interesting. I needed that for this Kong user interface. Yeah, some standard pipelines for maintaining BOSH releases and bumping their dependencies. Yeah, I have such work in this fork of the Stack and Wings pipeline templates, and those standard concourse tasks, GK automation that I use in those BOSH releases. And improve reuse with explaining a little bit more what is vendor. This spec. I mean, I'm a sort of expert in BOSH, but I don't know how this works, this backlog exactly. So this would be nice to document a little bit. Yeah, we had submitted this BOSH Central thing quite 3 years ago, and that was an index for reusable BOSH packages. Yeah, help people doing thematic builds. It's not always easy. Yeah, I remember for Kong, the Lua modules, they are fetched with Git. So you need the compilation VM needs an access to the internet. And yeah, that careful. This one is not ready for air-gapped environments at all. I've done that. I've documented that in the release notes, of course, but the metadata would be even further than that. Then we could classify a bit more. Well, yeah. So
okay.
That's why it's bold.
Yeah.
I
Sounds
put
good.
a lot into this.
I think a small number of what you're suggesting would fall into a reduced mission for BOSH. Like really, there's a core question of is our goal in BOSH to build a strong BOSH community and massively increase BOSH adoption? Or is our goal in BOSH to support the needs of the existing core BOSH releases of Cloud Foundry in the Cloud Foundry Foundation, right? Are we trying to build a separate community in BOSH that is outside of Cloud Foundry or not? And that's the question that we want to answer in the working group's mission and vision. And I've written a mission that says we shouldn't do that, essentially, by saying our job is to support the needs of the Cloud Foundry BOSH release ecosystem. But I'm certainly open to changing that mission, and like Ruben, we could look at that. The question becomes, do we think that's a good investment? Like, do we think that there will be enough people that show up to do work around BOSH to make it a viable ecosystem, a large-scale viable ecosystem is the first question. And then the second is BOSH gonna have enough momentum given all their alternatives, like Kubernetes and Docker images and Terraform and other cloud automation rancher? Like there's a million other cloud automation tools out there. Do we think BOSH is like, do we think we're willing to put in the work to make BOSH a big player in those? And do we think people will do it even if we put in the work? Those are the two questions, right?
Well, no one is going to spend the budget that Google has spent on marketing Kubernetes. No one is going to spend that budget on BOSH. That's obvious. I mean, but it's not because we don't have the end of the way to go that we should not start doing anything we can do. I mean, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for telling us your ideas. I think we'll figure it out ideally by next week when we change the mission or approve it. And you can still try to fight it out later if you don't get it, right? I mean, we're open to changing the mission over time, evolving it over time if we see evidence that it should change, right?
Benjamin, can you send over a link to that document?
Yeah, I do that too.
Thank you very much.
You know, if you're ready to share it, Benjamin, I know you had shared it with some of us in a pretty rough form, and so we kind of encouraged you to lay it all out on the table here, but we understand you're kind of bearing the soul of Bosch that you've been carrying in your heart to all of us.
That's right. Thank you. Yeah, sure. I'll take some time to polish it. These are just raw notes.
Cool.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of really interesting ideas that you're thinking about, and I really appreciate that, because I also see that power and value of Bosch, but I think we do need to figure out what scope would be practical in terms of investment in Bosch, and how it would actually get adoption among some of the alternatives that we see in the automation ecosystem. So I suspect that there's even a lot of the things that you pointed out, Benjamin, would be valuable improvements that would be somewhat smaller scale to the Bosch community. And over time we might be able to tackle some of the bigger things, but let's keep doing that incrementally.
Thank you, Timmy.
Okay. Does anyone have anything else to raise this week?
Should we make some progress on the next steps, as in what to do with? I mean, at some point there's going to be a bunch of teams that need to be created on GitHub, and those types of roles need to be fleshed out or codified on GitHub. Maybe some research can already start on that, how we're gonna do that on the foundation side. Because I mean, once this goes or is merged, it would be nice that we can start using those new roles and policies.
Yeah, Chris, how much can we get your support in setting up teams for the different roles in the working groups in GitHub, and then assigning, we've tagged properties in the PRs, right? We've tagged individual repos, but we haven't there's some legwork to be done logistically, right, around that. How much can we get your help?
Quite a bit. Yeah, I mean, I'll be here to certainly I can set up whatever teams are needed and invite whoever to those teams. As far as the properties and the PRs, yeah, I'll need some guidance, but yeah, I'll be here all the time to get all that logistical stuff set up as needed.
Okay, well then I think what we would like is, as we commit these PRs, as we accept these PRs for working groups, as part of that finalization process of the working group is done, create teams for the approvers and leads, right? And give the leads admin access to all the repos and approvers write access to all the repos. There's a question about whether we'd want to break it into areas per approver or not. That's an optimization. In my mind, I would start by not and say dump all the approvers in one team and let them make mistakes if they do choose to.
Okay.
But Eric was rolling his eyes, being do we really want to do that?
Just thinking about that. Yeah.
So we need to make a quick decision about how many teams actually make sense. I think when we get further down to the like other roles in the working group, we might want to break it out by area anyway. So maybe it makes sense to break the approvers out by area preemptively. So we would probably need a fair amount of your help then. That'd probably be the creation of like at least, I don't know, 5 or 6 GitHub teams, one for the lead and then one leads and one for each of the areas. And then you'd have to find the people and the repos. But the good news is it's all in the PR.
Great.
It even sounds like we shouldn't probably be doing this manually. Because I mean, it's like, what are we going? Because you have because the scope of the number of repos, the size, just sheer size of the task, it would be nice if there would be some way to deterministically change this config with some bot or something. Maybe that would be interesting to investigate as well.
Yeah, it might change over time, you're saying, and then like,
yeah, like if
we're
you
gonna
make
have to keep the areas and the
Yes.
lead group up to, yeah.
Yeah, I
onboarding,
think-
offboarding, right? It's going to be interesting otherwise.
I've definitely seen that kind of, specification of the set of people and mapping to roles in some YAML form in various other places. So I would imagine we could figure out how to automate that. Maybe there's something that we could borrow from another community that would just work as we need it to.
Yeah. I'm, by the way, happy to help with that investigation if needed.
Okay, yeah, it definitely sounds like something good to investigate and see what's out there, because having a single source of truth for who is a member of which group is a definite benefit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, ideally we would even have a pipeline or something that would manifest these changes, right? So we don't depend on Chris. I mean, it would be nice to be self-service and just merge a change to these policies.
Yeah.
And have it roll out. But
Yeah,
maybe I'm
makes an awful
dreaming.
lot of sense.
I'll investigate what's possible.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think that would be a good one. How are you fixed this week, Ruben, for having a look at it? The joys of home tech support.
Yes.
Would you fancy having a look at that this week and having it as an agenda item to see what's out there next week?
Yeah, that works.
Awesome. Okay, I can add that into the notes. Does anyone have any other thoughts in the last 10 minutes?
Nope, not from my side.
No. Okay. So, all right. I think we shall wrap up here at this point and shall catch you all next week. All right. Thank you very much, all.
Thanks, everyone.
See you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.